All right, everyone, we should be live. We'll have to make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. I do see that chat is working. Spaz out saying it's hump day. Just tell us, we love the Hexenhammers in Lincolnton, North Carolina. Cam2425IA, Rumble signs Crowder, get big. And various other things. Many clanks being posted at the moment. We've got a lot of shit to cover today. Several things about Tucker Carlson / the J6 conundrum currently going on. Also the FTC gunning for Twitter at the moment. That's kind of expected, but their methodology is a little bit sleazebag-esque. Also Kari Lake and other things that we've got to talk about. So we'll get right to it. Let's make sure we're live. We don't want to talk to ourselves. If ourselves talk back, that's even worse. Then we have to register as a Democrat. Okay, I see that we're live over there. Many more clanks. Luca the Vile, have you seen the Ninja Turtles trailer? I'm not so interested in the young adult sort of fiction stuff anymore. Ninja Turtles is sort of locked in time back when I was a kid. I think I'll skip it. First and foremost, we have a dual news story here with regards to the J6 releases that we're seeing now to Tucker Carlson, etc. First and foremost, we do have a release actually from Legal Discovery involved with the Fox News lawsuit in which Tucker Carlson, I'll just read you what he said here, actually, really briefly. And I'm not sure exactly who the other individual is in this conversation. We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait. And then responding further, I hate him passionately. I blew up at Peter Navarro today in frustration. I actually like Peter, but I can't handle much more of this. Now, I would like to say that the context here is lost. I'm willing, and you know me, if you know anything about my channel, I'm not a Tucker Carlson fan. He works for a legacy media outlet. I'm certainly not a fan of Fox News. I consider Tucker Carlson to be semi-independent but controlled opposition most of the time. That being said, the J6 releases are good. It's good that people are getting more of the truth, although still it's filtered information. I would point out that the J6 committee filtered their information quite heavily. We'll get into Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and the other RhinoCon responses to that in a moment. What I would like to point out, though, is that it is at least concerning because it seems to speak for a general ethos that's been instituted at Fox News at large that Carlson is at least adjacent to in the context of this conversation, which is effectively we want to ignore Donald Trump. We don't want to talk about him whatsoever. That would make sense. That is what the network appears to be doing. It's been alluded to more than a little bit openly by Murdoch and others already. Anyway, Fox News basically is just another globalistic corporation. That doesn't mean that some people that work there don't have independent views that may be different from the network. But if you're working for a boss, for a network, as we've seen, especially in the cancel culture era, you are beholden to that general zeitgeist within the corporation. And that is what Fox News is. There is nothing unique about Fox or CNN or any of these other organizations that sets themselves aside from being simply a normal corporate framework, other than the fact that they happen to be involved with information publication. And it is a publication. It's a publisher, not a platform. Everything is editorialized and indeed, I would quip, sanitized on that particular network. While I appreciate the J6 drops that we will talk about in a moment, I do find it slightly concerning that Tucker Carlson appears to be effectively agreeing with the general principle that's been put out by Murdoch, that's been put out by others on the network, which is don't talk about Donald Trump. We want to starve him of oxygen in order to stop him from being the nominee. And if that doesn't work, to stop him from being the one that's elected in 2024. The fix is in, so to speak, at Fox News. Shark dentures. I always say talking to myself is the only way to guarantee an intelligent conversation. I also say the same thing. Lol. So, yeah, that's number one is that release. And that's separate from the J6 releases. But we do have to talk about them as well because they are they're pretty important. Tucker Carlson releases shocking January 6th footage. Cheney and Kinzinger hardest hit. And of course, they've got the picture of Liz Cheney there looking like Miss Piggy, looking like a total sourpuss. Basically like a female Paul Ryan, if you can believe that. And there's various clips and shit in there. But I wanted to talk about the response to the additional J6 riot footage that's been released. Here's what we see. We see a countermanding of the narrative that it was hyper-violent. It was ultra-violence, number one. It was an insurrection, number two. We've known that that's not the case for 2 years, but they keep going with that line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The officers were brutally assaulted, multiple officers down. Everyone was being killed. They tried to stage a coup. They tried to overthrow the U.S. government. Now, if we actually look, and we have been now for several years, at least on this channel, at the facts as opposed to the hyperbolic emotional bullshit that's been put out there, we know that that's not the case. But now the public, the milquetoast soccer mom public, gets to see a countermanding of the official narrative. For that, Tucker Carlson does get credit. Even if the message is being sanitized, you know, you've got thousands of hours of video footage, you're releasing a few snippets, presumptively editing together some more for the weekend release, which he's promised. Even in that form, it's better than the alternative. The J6 committee never wanted any of these clips to be aired. And nobody really wondered why. You either do or do not believe that there was an insurrection that day. Of course, I say there was not. Quite clearly, there was no insurrection attempt. Liz Cheney, Kinzinger, a couple of neocons on the committee, colluded with various other uniparty officials to try to craft a narrative very carefully to make it seem like it was much worse than it was. The fact is that that's not true. So when I see Chuck Schumer come out and castigate the release and say the public's not supposed to see those clips, and then I see Mitch McConnell on the exact same day saying effectively the same thing, well, it was a mistake that this was released. This is trying to sanitize events. No, the sanitization of the storyline, of the plot line that was fed to the public happened with the J6 committee. You would think that if Mitch McConnell had any balls, pro tip he doesn't, he would have no problem with this. But he's decided to stand on the right side of history. I've decided to condemn the release of this material because the public doesn't need to see it. They're not allowed to use their own eyes and ears. It's literally like something from 1984. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. War is peace. Slavery is freedom. That's basically what we were fed by the J6 committee. Well, now more of the truth has come out, although not the complete truth. It would be nice if all the unedited footage were simply available for the entire public. Should just be dumped on like Rumble and BitChute and shit like that. Let people go through it and decide for themselves. The average person, of course, will not do so. I also like it when they say, and they do this with the Twitter files batches as well, well, why didn't you just give all of this information to all the journalists so that it could be gone through by more people? It's because what we've seen happen, including with the J6 committee, what we've seen happen is that this information gets selectively edited, cherry-picked over, and then released in very small form to try to craft a narrative. It's not an attempt to actually tell people the news. It's an attempt to make the news, to force people into a certain frame of mind. Now, if you're one of the plurality of Americans that distrust legacy media broadly, you might have seen past this bullshit attempt. I saw some people gaslighting and saying, well, yeah, on the day of January 6th, everyone was appalled, including Trump fans. Now I see them cheering for this info release. Oh my God, they've abandoned their principles. I would like to point out that some of us, the more wise of us, already expressed doubts about the official narrative. Like when AOC said that she was in the building being, held hostage, and it turns out she wasn't even in the Capitol on that day, and she was cowering in the next building over. And then when the officer burst in, she had flashbacks to being sexually assaulted or something like that. It's grandstanding. It's bullshit. It's propaganda. And that's the long and short of it. I'm glad to see so many people in the Uniparty so upset over this, though. Don't worry. Your boy, Tucker Carlson, the controlled opposition legacy media network host, is not going to release something that actually gets you in trouble. What he's doing is doing the milquetoast release, but it's better than nothing. And I predicted that that's exactly what we would get. But again, better than nothing. A C, at least you passed. It's not an A, but you don't get held back for this season. Clarific77, good morning, Sticks. Could you shout out a quick happy birthday to my mom? She is 65 today. We love your content. Happy birthday to Clarific's mother. May it be a good one. Eat some cake or a steak. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. Yes, I'm going to eat your biltong. I'm going to eat it all at this point. I mean, I'm just going to take all the money that you're giving me for the super chats, and then I'm going to go to your store at some point and buy like 10 pounds of it or something. BW, do you think Williamson can win the Dem primary? I ask because she's for reparations, and that's going to get her the black vote. She's got absolutely no chance whatsoever. You will never see a President Marianne Williamson. Hunter Wadley, the gall of Chuck Schumer to say this is gross cherry picking of the right. I guess everyone was born yesterday. Yes, but here's the problem. And I'll identify it for you. The problem is that everyone has already been inoculated into their beliefs about J6 for several years. And so when you show this to somebody and you confront them and say, look, it wasn't as violent an event as you're saying. There was no actual considerable insurrection attempt. Hey, by the way, here's footage of Ray Epps taking credit for orchestrating something. Hush, hush, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I won't say any more for YouTube's TOS purposes. Even when you confront them, 99% of them, what do? They default to Orange Man bad, or they default to, well, it's been cherry-picked. Yeah, here's a picture of someone throwing a smoke grenade outside. Not the same person, has nothing to do with the situation indoors, but somehow that false equivalency is made. It'll change some minds. It'll be helpful, but it won't be the groundswell that some people are expecting. Captain Cannabis, morning, Sticks. Have you heard about the upcoming Fallout TV series made by Amazon? Thoughts? Enjoy the cat food money. Shout out to Alex. Clank. No, I didn't, and now I'm wishing that I hadn't from you either. No offense. I'm just joking. Amazon is making a Fallout TV series. I think hard pass. I don't think so. No, thank you. I would rather enjoy the video games and leave it at that. Johnny Azul, do you think any of the rioters will have their charges tossed? How can the prosecution be held responsible for holding exculpatory evidence? Yeah, well, I mean, the criminal proceedings are different from the J6 committee, so that would be slightly different. They should have their sentences done away with. Some of them are treated literally like traitors, even though none of them really engaged in treason, but that won't happen because the judiciary there is corrupt, so unfortunately those people have to suffer. Stephen Nizek, sure is a lot of salt over the release of the footage, especially when they claim the footage doesn't mean anything. I am one happy salt miner. Yeah, exactly. If the footage isn't showing them anything new, then why is it trending all over the world and being parsed apart and cockeyed by the liberals? Why are they preemptively spreading a bunch of propaganda about something that they're not worried about? It's because it does have an effect. A la una en punto. Likely that China would detonate an EMP over the U.S.? No, not particularly likely, but it is possible. You'd need more than one, though, to do any considerable damage. Suck duck. Until lobbying are legally indistinguishable from bribes, votes mean nothing. Yeah, they should kick the lobbyists out of Capitol Hill, but they get too much money to do that. Ozzy's Robots. The Murdoch kids supported Hillary. They are the biggest individual shareholders of Disney, nearly as much as BlackRock. They are globaloids of the highest order and tied to China. Avoid Fox and phony Tucker. Agreed. Tucker Carlson is like the one redeeming facet of it, but it's kind of like finding a few undigested bits of corn in one of Andy Six's asshole releases. Okay, it's better than the rest of the shit. You rinse it off. It's kind of sort of technically edible, but why the fuck would you want to dig around for the dingleberries? Suck duck. Sorry about the grammar. That's okay. Dan Malone, 53. I remember the day the media accused Trump colluding with Russia, going to coffee with some friends. I've got some coffee clanking up right now. Extra smooth and creamy. Just like Andy Six's dingleberries. I will always make references to this, by the way. I'm glad when people are upset over it. Federal Trade Commission demands Elon Musk identify all journalists who had access to Twitter files. The FCC also ordered an explanation regarding the firing of ex-Deputy General Counsel and former FBI lawyer Jim Baker. Oh my God, is this a goddamn rabbit hole we're going down now? The Federal Trade Commission, FTC, is demanding Elon Musk turn over internal Twitter documents, including a list of the journalists who are behind the viral Twitter files, so Matt Taibbi et al. The Wall Street Journal first reported Tuesday about more than a dozen letters the FTC sent to Twitter and its legal counsel as part of a probe looking into Musk's 2022 takeover of the tech giant. Yes, the FTC, in its original order, is looking into financial things. It's looking into finances and the actual physical takeover by Elon Musk. Why then are they dovetailing that with the Twitter releases? It's because they want the Twitter releases. They know that their capability does not extend to simply saying, hey, you gave intel, info, or something to a journalist, to someone who's, potentially got press credentials, at least locally, and we want that info. That would be a constitutional no-no. So you dovetail it with an investigation that has to do with your finances. It has to do with where the FTC would actually take any effect. Interesting workaround there. The information ordered by the FTC included a demand to identify all journalists who were granted access to the company's archives, turn over anything involving the massive layoffs and the Twitter Blue subscription service, provide all internal communications related to Musk, and explain why Twitter fired its deputy general counsel and former FBI lawyer, Jim Baker. Now, that's interesting because it's already been explained, because he was going through the information and redacting things before it was being given to the journos. And so he was cut off from access so that he couldn't keep sanitizing material. This is an attempt to undo some of the damage from disclosures that the federal government did not want made. They did not want the Twitter files to exist. They didn't want people to know that the Biden administration, and to an extent the same bureaus under Trump, decided to lean on a private company, supposedly private, in order to censor law-abiding speech by U.S. citizens. As part of a larger schema claiming that some of these people had ties to terroristic organizations, claiming that they were getting money from Russia, claiming all sorts of other connections between them, that in some cases these people, having been identified, have said, no, that's not the case at all. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I've never even talked to anyone in Russia. And it's simply because the FBI and other groups looked at the hashtags that were being spread and automatically identified individuals that were using that verbiage. So they assumed that because you retweeted an article, you were on the Russian payroll. That's basically a dovetailing of those internal cases that we see here from the FTC. This is exceptionally corrupt. To try to dovetail effectively a finance-based investigation with demanding personal information about journalists. Supposedly the First Amendment matters. The rights of the press, right? They can do what they want according to the liberals. But now they're going to end up with their personal information given to the FTC. I guess their excuse is, well, they might have gotten money for releasing it or something. They're technically Twitter employees when they're doing that. Details of the letters emerged from an interim staff report from the House Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, which accused the government agency led by FTC Chairwoman Nina Khan of overreaching to harass Twitter. I would suggest what we're seeing here is definitely overreach, and I would more than suggest that it's a harassment of Twitter. And that's because, again, they didn't want this information going public. They did everything that they possibly could with all their legacy media allies when the Twitter files started trickling in. Did you note how pre-prepared and quickly released some of the articles were, saying that that was bullshit and it was nothing burger? It was like within 10 minutes. Matt Taibbi drops Twitter files 3 or whatever it was. Like 5 minutes later, you've got a WAPO hit piece on Matt Taibbi. That's a total coincidence. There was no coordination there. It's ass covering by the Biden administration, number one, but number two, subjugate various departments and agencies like the FBI, CIA that were implicated, that were already doing it when Trump was the president, by the way. I don't think with his blessing, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for Trump's fans to be censored by Donald Trump, but they were doing it. And so there was a massive violation of the First Amendment. And now they're trying to violate the Fourth Amendment in order to cover their asses. Despicable. Drew and Albane, it is okay to talk to yourself as long as the voices that reply that say love them all outnumber the ones that say hurt them all. Drive-by commenter. Tim Pool speculated the rise of deepfake or deepfake edits of actual footage could be weaponized during the 2024 campaign against the GOP ticket. Any thoughts about potential damage? Audio is more likely to be used at this stage of development than video. It's still usually easy to tell that it's a deepfake. And it could be weaponized against the Dem candidate. Don't think this is a partisan issue. It could be used by anyone. Anyone who's more tech literate than someone like me, anyway. Sir Elliot, I love my job. On special occasions, the kitchen makes us breakfast sandwiches. The sous chef always says donate or don't eat. Yum, yum. A la una en punto. Even if China only got off one EMP, wouldn't that significantly cripple our ability to respond? Apparently, all they have to do is float some balloons over the country to bring down all air travel and so forth. So I don't think that they need to worry about deploying EMPs. It would be kind of difficult, although it is possible. And no, one EMP, no, it wouldn't. Modern electrical systems are too hardened to that, generally speaking, to get fried by it. It would do damage. It would take out some transformers or whatever, but it wouldn't bring the nation to a standstill. Hunter Wadley, Amazon Plus Fallout TV show. Sticks would rather have pizza on pineapple. Yeah, I'd rather trim my toenails or watch grass grow. What the fuck would I want that for? Hey, I'm tuning in for the Schadenfreude of watching Amazon destroy yet another timeless masterpiece, just like they did with Lord of the Rings, which, is that even still a thing? I don't know. I don't know if they've renewed it for another season. Can't tell you who's in it. Just don't give a fuck. From the few clips and the pilot that I saw, it never interested me. Transylvania 90, REMP. No, because the U.S. has offshore nuke subs. That'd also be a problem for the Chinese. China's definitely a problem that we should worry about. Mostly we should worry about them importing their ideology to the United States, like the social credit score bullshit. That's much more pernicious than EMPs or nukes or anything like that. Dan Malone 53, people will believe OWT regardless of the facts. Let's see. Next news story. This is a good one. Trump considering Kari Lake for 2024 running mate, according to a report. Lake says she's focused on becoming Arizona's next governor while helping Trump get reelected. Well, one hand washes the other. If you're being very helpful to Trump in a swing state like Arizona, you know, you got to pay the piper. You might end up Secretary of State, or it'd be funny, Kari Lake Transport Secretary. Imagine when she goes into the former booty judge office to clean out the desks and stuff, and there's a bunch of train-related material that doesn't exactly have to do with the job of transportation. Former President Donald Trump is pondering his running mate options for another presidential run in 2024. And he is reportedly strongly considering former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake. Axios reported that Lake is among a short list of women being considered by the former president as he looks for a way to gain support from the white suburban women needed to beat President Joe Biden in 2024. Now, the problems that I have with the report, which is, you know, the usual unnamed source within the Trump campaign says, one problem is that you don't know that Biden will be the Dem nominee. I guess they're leaning towards actually being crazy enough to let him run. I think that's a mistake strategically for them. You don't know whether someone in a primary dark horse could unseat him despite his incumbency. It is physically possible. That's problem number one. Problem number two, I don't think that Donald Trump thinks in that particular manner. If he chooses Kari Lake, I think it'll be genuinely because they like each other. They have a camaraderie. I think that there are other better possible running mates. Rand Paul is still at the head of my list. I think that he would have a massive impact on independent voters that literally no other standing Republican would have. There are other possibilities too. Down the list, you've got DeSantis, although I don't think Trump's ego or DeSantis's ego allows it. He's more likely to try to jump in and probably lose if he does. Ted Cruz, I wouldn't like. I'm sure that he's at least being considered. And others. Kari Lake would be near the top of the list. Would she be an A+, an absolute knock it out of the park, like, in my opinion, Rand Paul would be? No. Would she be a B? Yeah, she'd be on the B tier. Far better than Mike Pence. Mike Pence was on the D- tier. I said this at the time. It almost got me off the Trump train when he was chosen. I would have no problem with Kari Lake being chosen. Now, if you're aiming for a female VP, you're Donald Trump. Please do not go with Nikki Haley. Please don't do that. Tulsi Gabbard, for all of her various problems, especially some of her past opinions, would be miles better than Nikki Haley. Kari Lake, I think, would be near the top of the list. You could get Marjorie Taylor Greene, but she's got too important a role that she's already playing number one, and she's more acerbic number two. If you want to counterbalance Trump, just look at it from the perspective of what Trump's talents are. He's more of the bully. He's more of the forceful one. Kari Lake is much more strategic and sly because she's literally been in the fucking legacy media. She runs circles around reporters when they try to brick wall her. Having that kind of strategy could work. Having Kari Lake aboard is by far not nearly the worst thing that Trump could do. I think that Kari Lake would be perfectly acceptable. Again, much better than Mike Pence. I wouldn't worry about her being a heartbeat away from the presidency, in other words. Would I worry if it were Nikki Haley? Yeah, that might be, it wouldn't get me off the Trump train, but it would rankle me. It would worry me all the time. I guess, I'd have to ask all the Christian friends out there that pray, hey, can you pray for Trump's health? Because Nikki Haley, yeah, no thanks. Yes, a lot of people pointing out that Tulsi Gabbard was a Democrat, although partisan loyalty means literally nothing to me. I don't have any. That being said, somehow still considerably better than Nikki Haley. At least Tulsi Gabbard isn't warmongering it up right now. She's talking the talk in multiple ways. She's given up on her former anti-gunnery, so that was the big sticking point for me. And I think she actually is genuine about it, even if it's only for career furtherance. At the very least, you know what side your bread's buttered on. Orwell's goon. As a recent convert to Catholicism, it's easy to see the rituals and dogmatic nature of leftism. Carry on. Intradasting. As a non-Catholic myself, General Hydra, I hear that they are making a Fallout series in Amazon Prime. Yes, it's been pointed out. I have no intention of watching that. I will wait for Fallout 5 because 76 doesn't count in my opinion, and anything that Amazon does at this point with film or series, I'm not a fan of. I love their publishing on demand service. The book related stuff is fine. Why don't you stick to what you're good at? Running Whole Foods or publishing people's memoirs. Garrett, was watching your videos on drag queens and you kept saying minstrel shows were in the 50s. It was the 1850s. No, there was definitely a lot of minstrelsy on TV back in the 40s and 50s in the United States. You can look it up for yourself. In fact, some of it dates back further than that. The first recording, I think, that had audio on it was the 1910s, like 1913. I watched it the other day, along with a bunch of other old stuff from the turn of the 20th century. Great shit. Way more entertaining than what we have today. Robot Trucker, thanks for doing my Rasputin suggestion. You're very welcome. I hope you liked the video. Rasputin, I'm still not exactly sure which way it's supposed to be pronounced. Nor does it matter. He's dead. He can't take offense. Next news story. Viva Fry putting this out. According to the New York Times, this was reported on yesterday, a pro-Ukrainian group sabotaged Nordstream, and they were not acting at the direction of Ukrainian officials. So the U.S. did it. Noted. It's actually an amazing illustration of how the New York Times can lie even when they are telling a truth. Here's my thoughts, and this new report coming in with regards to whodunit with the Nord Stream pipeline. Fog of war style, we're putting our fog of war hats on, or our goggles. We still do not know exactly who is responsible. It could have been Russia, although it never made sense. It could easily have been the United States. It could have been the British, by the way. It could have been the Germans. And it could have been a pro-Ukrainian group. But the problem is, what the fuck does that even mean? Are you saying that it was a non-state actor? Are you saying that it was a nation aligned, generally speaking, with Ukraine or Ukraine's fight that did it for them? Maybe it was the Norwegians. Maybe the Danes did it. Oh, who fucking knows? Maybe it was the Dutch. Those devious Dutch with their submarines. I think there's like 2 of them in their entire fleet. It could have been anyone with a reasonably advanced second world military capacity. It was not exactly the most amazing operation in history. What we do know is that it comes shortly after the Baltic Ops that happened. That involved U.S. and NATO joint training. It could have been any country that was participating. The one with the most to gain from Nord Stream being bullseyed was the United States. Now, when you say a pro-Ukrainian group, would that not encompass the Joe Biden stewardship? They are unabashedly pro-Ukraine, partially because they're making money off of the operations that are going on there. Pro-Ukrainian group, so it could be anyone in Europe for the most part. Anyone in North America, for the most part. So we know it wasn't China. We know it wasn't Russia. We know it wasn't some of the non-aligned movement countries. Other than that, it could have been anyone else in the world, or it could have been a non-state actor. Another big thing was that it could have always been Ukrainian saboteurs, although Ukraine is a little ways from, that particular spot in the world. They would have had to go through Poland, etc., but they wouldn't have found any particular resistance. Hey, where are you going with all of those sea mines, with this stack of C4 bricks and shit? Oh, we're going to bomb the Nordstream pipeline. Fuck the Russians. That sounds good. Yeah, make sure to bribe the guards at the border. That's kind of how things work in Eastern Europe anyway. I'm not compelled by this. I think it was most likely the United States military that carried it out. Second to that, I would say saboteurs of a non-state nature. But I mean, we don't know who they would be working for, where they're from. Could have been multiple nations involved. They go in during the Baltic Ops operation, the war games that were literally scheduled not long before the pipeline was blown up, and then it's remotely detonated. It could have been any of these various nations. I think that it is, I agree with this. I think that it's a deflection from likely U.S. involvement. So you put out a report saying, well, it was a Ukrainian aligned group. Okay, that's fine. Which fucking group? Which one? We probably won't know until 50 years has elapsed, much like with the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Carlos Gaspar sent $2 Canadian. Thank you, no comment. Let's see here. Aussie's robots. Off topic, could Musk be a Trojan horse? Between Starlink, Tesla, Twitter, and future Neuralink, he potentially has more surveillance capability than the feds. No, I don't think that he is, but I do think that in the long span of things, much like a lot of the tech billionaires originally started out marginally libertarian and very much did stand for tech freedom of expression and privacy online. Eventually, all things come to an end, and there's always the chance he sells out. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope he bucks the trend. There are others that have. But it's unfortunately possible that happens. I'm not interested in Neuralink, although I'm extremely interested in Starlink. I think that's his crowning glory, much more than Tesla. And Twitter, of course, he's taken over, but he didn't build himself. I think Starlink's the most important thing he's doing. Rocket development, communications, satellites, etc., going up. That's more interesting to me than Neuralink. I'm not interested in cybernetic implants. So sue me for wanting to be just biological in nature. Michael Stuskinski, Crowder signed with Rumble. Thoughts? Good on him. Not a bad idea. Maybe they'll offer me a signing on sort of thing. Just make sure nothing that crimps my creativity, or else I would have to say no. I'd be willing to get paid the big bucks in order to make exclusive content or something like that, though. As far as Crowder goes, I mean, his audience is enormous. I wonder how much they had to pay him. Probably more than he was making before anyway. So I guess he's got no problems. After other groups trying to sign him aboard and then basically telling him to fuck himself, like, Ben Shapiro's people, he gets to work with a company that, generally seems to actually give a damn. By the way, speaking of Rumble, I've got a 100,000 subscriber Rumble award that should be arriving, now, basically. Actually, it was slated for arrival earlier today, but hasn't come yet. So I'm hoping that occurs later, preferably after the live stream. And then either later today or tomorrow, I can do an unboxing. Yeah, I've got that award. And by the way, clanked him well on the way to the 225,000 subscriber level on Rumble. You should definitely subscribe over there, where I'm also live streaming right now. And to those of you on Rumble, please do share out all the links. Fucking go crazy. Because at 225,000, you get another award. I'm looking to have more on the shelf behind me. Our powers grow. Rumble is a good site. Almost 2,000 people watching there right now. Next news story. Now we're talking about the Dutch tractor protest. This is with regards to farmers that are potentially having their land confiscated. They've been offered a sum that's considerably overspot in order to sell their farms to the government. And the government's excuse is, well, we have to curtail emissions of nitrogen and stuff, and we have to therefore get rid of some farms. What we want to do, according to the government, at least of the Netherlands, is to let those farms go fallow, put trees in, where we're going to make green spaces, basically. I have said since day one, when I learned about these, that is not their goal. Their goal is more development land. what they realize is, hey, 10 acres of farm does not generate as much tax revenue or house as many people as 10 acres of medium density housing. It's simply the case. The Netherlands has a housing shortage. They're building up instead of out most of the time because there's not a whole lot of available land left. So what do? You convince the farmers to sell, and then in the future, you switch the program, where first it's a bait and switch, basically. You bait people in by saying, well, climate activists and stuff should love this idea. We're going to let it go fallow. So there will be no emissions. There will be trees, and geese will live there, and cows and stuff like that. It'll be cute. It'll be a little forest. And we'll scatter them around in certain parts of the Netherlands. And we can harvest wood once in a while, lumbering. There'll be berries and nettles and all of these other wonderful things. By the way, nettles are actually wonderful. Yeah, they may do itchy, scratchy thing, but they're tasty as fuck. They're way better than spinach could ever be. Try eating nettles sometime. Make sure to cook it properly, or else your throat might have some problems. That's the bait. The switch is that later on they'll say, well, some of these farms are on the margins of development zones. We're going to grant that land to a developer and make 100,000 new goddamn units of medium density housing, 2 or 3 stories roughly, with little yards that will be sprayed with the same sort of fertilizers and chemicals as the farms, only probably more. Dutch farming has basically eliminated pesticide usage, and people will have cars, and there will be pavement and bricks where there once was grass and happy cows and sheep. And somehow, in the end, the switch will be pulled off. So now what are they doing? The mayor of Hague in the Netherlands is now threatening to use military gear on the planned farmers' protest this weekend against the government communist-style land grab. Unreal. This is from Peter, Sweden. Yes, apparently they're planning to militarize the police in order to try to prevent these people from protesting further. I don't know that it'll work, though. When you've got literally tens of thousands of tractors clogging all of the roads in your town, it's going to be a little bit difficult to brutalize everyone. But I'm sure that they'll try. There was police brutality before. And speaking as an expat, as someone from the United States, normally it's like U.S. Metro cops that get the bad rap of being overly violent and roided up and crazy. When we look at European cops, unless it's Germany or a country like that, we say, well, it's almost disarming, the rather peaceful chaps, etc. I never got the sense of Dutch police I've seen them interacting with people. I never get the sense that they're violent or insane individuals. But the second that a tractor rolls down the street, all of a sudden they're firing rubber bullets or something like that. I just don't stand exactly what they expect to accomplish, other than moving further towards the WEF goal. This land. Other people in the Netherlands, hey, listen to me. They're not going to actually let most of that land go fallow. That is just the bait. I wish the leftoids understood this. How can you possibly say that a farm, okay, what is it? Grass and crops and shit. It's plants and shit. How can you say that that's worse for the environment? And by the way, the world's second largest food exporter, which is the Netherlands, it's basically a giant farm anyway. How can you say that's worse for the environment than what I'm living in? Two unit medium density with little yards, little courtyards and stuff like that. Imagine the resources that are required to terraform the land in the first place, to put in the infrastructure, et cetera, and build the structures themselves. And then think about the emissions thereafter, the use of electricity, of gas potentially, or whatever. The use of even the bricks, the concrete, the passes as bricks in most of these developments, the wood for the fence, the cement for the foundation, the laminate, the fake wood for the floors, all of the other things that are required for the people that move in there. They eat, they shit, and so forth, all of the plumbing and so forth. How can you say that that's worse than a farm? The farm, one house and then 20 acres of goddamn grass, and they happen to raise sheep. 20 acres of goddamn grass. They get a bunch of chickens or geese or something like that. How can you say that that's worse for the environment? The animal shit just gets scooped up, composted, and reused. Your little family home garden too, not just the goddamn crops that you're growing, your Swiss chard or your endive or whatever. No, farms are great. If anything, the Netherlands should have more farms and less of the hyper development. You're already one of the world's largest food muscles. Is a country that's not that much bigger than just the twin state area of the United States. It's not even the size of Maine. Somehow you're the second largest exporter of food in the whole goddamn world. And not just basic crops, although there's a lot of that. some of which are edible. Tulips, I don't think they are. I think your tummy would get upset. Wool and beef and leather, tangential to that, milk, cheese, and things of that nature. That's what we need more of. We need more people getting back to the land. What they don't want is they don't want those people there at all. They want factory farming. That's the other thing. They'll probably compact some of that land and give it to a factory farm, a seed plantation or something. One that's heavily invested in by the Chinese government. It's part of the Great Steal that's going on right now. And the Dutch people should resist it with all due diligence. They try to do that shit in the United States, too. Alejandro Munoz, morning Sticks, long time. Have you noticed that the 2010s internet political right is no longer cool among writers? I think you foresaw this. Yeah, the old wave sort of moralistic right has basically died out at this point, at least for the current era. It may rise back up like a hydra later on. Apache, morning Sticks. Did you see the ADL saying Trump being anti-war, anti-comm, and anti-globalist was anti-Semitic? Yes, I did. And they shouldn't have made the tweet. They're getting a little bit too close to comfort for talking points that you would be more likely to see on Politically Incorrect on 4chan. I wonder why Jewishness is the first thing that they thought of when they saw that Trump was making comments that were anti-war. That's not a great look, ADL. Just to be clear, you need to take care of your optics a little bit more. Being anti-communist, well, every reasonable person in the world is against communism because communism is a pile of steaming horseshit. That includes a lot of Jews. I guess they're going to invent the concept of self-hating Jews like they have with black people now. Well, you're a self-hating black because you didn't vote for the political party I think that you should vote for. Grant Paul, for your years of loyal service. Thank you very much, my good man, and thank you too, Grant. By the way, please don't send any more super chats because I've got one more story to get to here, and I'll keep it a little bit on the short side today. A little bit high energy. That's due to my constant clanking of caffeine. Cyberbully, look at those eyes, man. That dude is gone. Ladies and gentlemen, thank your lucky stars every day. You're not Dave Pacman. Yeah, or Dash Dabrowski. By the way, some people think that Dash Dabrowski is actually a right-winger who lampoons the left. I know this is not the case because if he were just lampooning, he would not have blocked me. He really is actually that goddamn crazy. This might be why he's physically falling apart. I don't know what the fuck is in that dude's diet, but I think he's got a protein deficiency. He's becoming delusional or something like that. He needs to eat a hamburger. Mega Sea Monkey. Good morning. Caffeine is overpowered. I can bulldoze through my busy day on 4 hours of sleep thanks to it. Yeah, isn't caffeine fucking wonderful? Salt A. Sticks, what is your favorite coffee brand? Mine is Bustelo Hispanic Espresso. I feel that coffee has no effect on me and makes me knock out quicker. Yeah, some people think that coffee makes them sleepy at some points for some reason. I've never had that problem. I amp myself up more in the morning and afternoon. I drink Douwe Egberts, which is a Dutch brand of coffee. I drink the mild blend because it's less acidic. Transylvanian 90. Speaking of protests, a Canadian commission led by a Liberal judge who is friends with Trudeau's daddy found that Trudeau's use of the Emergency Act last year was legitimate. Government investigated itself. Yeah, but to be clear, the government always does shit like that. Anytime someone in government gets blamed for a problem, they form an investigative committee comprised of their friends. DT, hi from Canada. Thank you very much. And now the final news story. This goes back to my hometown of Rutland, Vermont. Technically the city, but whatever. Alderman Michael Duenges ousts, I think I'm pronouncing that name correctly, Duenges? I'm sorry, I don't know how. Ousts Mayor David Allaire to lead Rutland. He is taking over the corpse, the crepitating corpse that is Rutland City. Let me tell you about Rutland City. It used to be the second largest metro area in the state of Vermont. It was fairly clean. Yeah, there's some parts that are a little bit dicey, and it had a reputation for that, but it was clean. It was family friendly. And the businesses went on. You get the farmer's market, the fair, and all of these wonderful things. That was before the Great Recession. Since then, it has goddamn fallen apart. There is basically nothing left in Rutland City. It is now the 5th largest metropolitan area in the Vermont region. That only in a decade. After having been, number 2 on that list for a very, very, very long time, probably since the goddamn 19th century, it managed to get completely knocked out. Part of it is homelessness and drug use. That's a problem. Crime has considerably risen. That rot that originally was contained in a few small neighborhoods has expanded outwards considerably. City services are a goddamn fucking joke. And Rutland has shrunk considerably in population. It's lost over 3,000 people from its metro area over that same time period. I'm surprised it took Allaire this long to lose. Vermonters love their incumbents. Good luck to you, new Mayor Michael. You're going to need it because Rutland has a lot of systemic fucking issues. A lot of them. It's called Vegas for a reason. Basically, tourists come through, they stop at a couple of the box stores or something, and then they go up to Killington or they go up to Burlington or something. There's no other reason to visit Rutland. I love Rutland. I spent most of my life there. The woods are great. The scenery is fine. The downtown is peaceful for the most part until you get to the Walmart Plaza after dusk. It's fun, and the little bit of edginess that is there can be fun too. Because there are some weirdos in Rutland. We like to keep it weird, too. So there's Manny the drunk over there, Tina the hooker who's looking to score some rocks. And it adds a little bit of flair to it. It's uniquely Rutland by Vermont standards. That's fine. And it's not as disheveled as Barrie. I don't want to convince people that Barrie's far worse. It looks like a pile of steaming shit. No offense to anyone that lives there, but your city council is way worse than in Rutland. But it's gone downhill so much that there's not a whole lot of future for it, really. Surprised the property cost rates are still so high. Rutland town is still growing to an extent, although I think it's stalled out again, and is more scenic. Rutland City has systemic, real problems. They're trying, they had separate votes to allocate money to try to overhaul the sidewalks and curbs and stuff and repair some of the aging water pipes and shit like that. That's great. That's good rejuvenation. Ultimately, though, I don't know that there's enough to sustain Rutland in its current form and really keep it from becoming a ghost town at some point. Or at least like one of those dead towns that ends up economically decrepit and constantly needing more funding from the state government. I'm worried that that's going to be the fate of Rutland. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm skeptical as to whether I'll permanently resettle back there. I intend to spend time between the Netherlands and the U.S. I'm not sure that Rutland at this point is the right fit for me. 10 years ago, absolutely it was. 15 years ago, definitely it was. But there was a lot more there. I like small town America, but I would rather be in a small town that's stable, not one that is slowly disappearing off the map. Well, what kind of place is that to raise a kid in anyway? It doesn't make any sense. The box stores have decimated the downtown. The Great Recession decimated it more than anything else. There was a time, and I remember this, I was there at the time during the Great Recession, that you could go down the street and fully a quarter or at least 20% of all of the properties were foreclosed. We never really fully recovered from that. Yes, there are people there, but they're not even from Rutland. There are a bunch of out-of-staters that had drug money that moved in. The fentanyl crisis takes over, and the rest is history. People are moving out because they don't feel safe. If they're going to be in a place as remote as Rutland, so it's small town America, it doesn't have the amenities of Burlington or other big cities by our New England standards. It's not Boston or something. If you're going to have to deal with that remoteness and that lack of services that you can have, at the very least, you expect it to be tranquil. You expect it to be clean. You expect it to be scenic. But that's not Rutland City. Parts of Rutland Town and West Rutland, certainly Proctor, not Rutland City, though. And that crime is beginning to spread further from that particular cancerous core that has become Rutland City's downtown. So it's very sad. I mean, I hope something can be done to stabilize the city because it's a very, very nice place in many, many ways. It's very nice people, very helpful. I've never had any problems, well, other than with one of the town drunks at one point. That was years ago, involved an ex of mine, actually. Interesting story that I won't bother to tell right now because I'll go offline in a minute. But yeah, I mean, something's got to be done because otherwise Rutland will be insolvent. It'll have to downsize. That Manx guy, morning sticks and coffee. Mopey Hornet, with cooking being a big part of your life, what's your opinion on Gordon Ramsay? Pretty cool. I like Ainsley Harriott more, though. I like cooking shows. We have that on most of the day, actually, cooking shows, because they're family friendly. Like, you know that Ainsley Harriet's not going to say fuck or cunt or something like that. And, I enjoy cooking because it's fun. I'm going to be cooking spaghetti later. I made Franks and beans, by the way, last night. Slow cooked to perfection for several hours. Delicious. I had several more bowls today. But I'm in a spaghetti mood, I think. So I'm going to make sketty with lots and lots and lots of mushrooms in the sauce, by the way. Probably going to use the whole fucking container. It's going to be more mushroom than it is tomato, but that's what I'm talking about. Okay, anyway, I think I'll go offline now. I thank you to the nearly 6,000 people who tuned in live. Remember, you can subscribe to me on Rumble if you're watching on YouTube. I do appreciate it if you do, because we are really trying to get to 225 on there, preferably before the end of the year. If you're on Rumble, share out the fucking content, man. Rumble links tend not to be banned on other sites inexplicably, despite the fact that it's garnering legacy media attention at this point for being a potential YouTube competitor for both streaming and standalone non-short videos. Short goes to TikTok at this point. Let the kids have their low attention span fucking horseshit. That's about all. Peace out.